All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's HPP session for August 9th. I am Adam Campbell, Vice President of Patient Safety and Quality for Erlanger Health System. Today, we're going to be talking really about the basis of safety, how we view safety within the system, and that includes high reliability principles and other things. And we're going to get into a little bit about how we structure root cause analyses if we have patient safety events, and how we look for common factors for those events as well. The main framework really was based on Frankel in 2017 from IHI, where we really want to mold together a safety culture and become a learning system. So the safety culture piece is really around accountability, right? How do we hold each other accountable every day, not only to do the right thing, but to have safety on the forefront of our minds. That has to be coupled really with really good teamwork and communication and psychological safety. A lot of safety culture, or all safety culture, really has to be within an environment of non-punitive reactions if something were to occur safety-wise. This blends in with being a learning system. So we're going to start today by looking at high reliability, what that means for safety, and then how do we intertwine that with quality improvement methods? How do we become transparent for safety? And how does leadership really promote those activities as a whole? What is really most important within the Frankel model is really the engagement of the patients and families, as well as really have total engagement with staff as well. So this is coupled with the Hudson model of safety maturity, where you can really gauge as an organization how mature you are in your safety processes. That's both on culture and becoming a learning system, and how much you really embrace the principles of high reliability. So this came out quite some time ago, but it starts really on level 1, which is pathological, which really is minimal compliance around safety. So safety is not a concern, safety is not a priority, and you really have no processes in place to address it. Of course, very few organizations, especially in healthcare, are at that level. Most healthcare, and here at Erlanger, we're really in that level 4 and 5, where we actually become proactive to prevent safety events from occurring. And the last level is really generative. Safety is a part of our mission, vision, and values. Safety is talked about in huddles. Safety is educated to. So really that level 4 and 5 is where we are as a system. A lot of healthcare safety premises is really based on out of industry safety. The high reliability organizations that really started things off was really naval aviation, nuclear power, commercial aviation. When you think of these industries, these are very safe industries where if you're a customer, you really feel safe and you really have a lot of confidence in the system to take care of you while you're being provided the service. So a lot of high reliability is first and foremost getting variability out of the system. So here on this slide is really a comparison between healthcare and something that may be happening on an aircraft carrier that may be causing variability in these different scenarios. In the aircraft carrier scenario, jet speed, jet characteristics, the level of the carrier in the ocean, visibility conditions, sea conditions, training of the crews, equipment functionality, all cause variation. Of course, in naval aviation, it's all been minimized to a very small extent. Healthcare is very similar, but I would propose that healthcare, when compared to any other industry, is actually more highly complex. It's more complex, has more variability, and that's due to the variability that walks in the door with the patient. Okay, something that's not really seen in nuclear power, where a lot of things are more standardized on their inputs. So here is a list of some of the things that cause variability in healthcare. What high reliability helps us do is standardize our processes so we reduce that variability over time. So this is from Wyke and Sutcliffe, Managing the Unexpected. They now have 3 editions of their book. A lot of out-of-industry examples of high reliability, but really high reliability organizations, Erlanger included, operate under very trying conditions all the time, yet manage to have fewer than their fair share of accidents, right? You rarely hear of a plane crash. You rarely hear of a nuclear accident. Well, at the healthcare level, at the hospital level, this is how we manage to improve safety. Okay. We know we're in a complex environment. So what are the systems and the processes we put in place to mitigate this? And it's all based on risk. Where is our risk in the organization related to safety and processes? And we really have to look at the probability of that risk occurring and causing harm. And what's the consequence if that harm occurs? So you'll see later in the slides that we have different levels of harm that we can classify safety events as. All right, that's how we learn, and that's how we can share our outcomes. So our job is to decrease that probability of an accident. HROs are really good at this. How you espouse, there's actually 5 principles of high reliability. When you espouse those within your organization, you're going to do that, decreasing that probability. So definition of reliability, it's really about capability of your process. Are you resourced? Are you educated? And do you have processes in place that make sense for the proper care of the patient? So it's the capability of a process and the procedures and the services to perform its intended function. All right. Are we meeting standards on how we need to do this in the required time? Okay. So any given day we come in, we're going to be looking at, are we ready to provide the service? Are we going to meet the time parameters with length of stays and things of that nature? And are we meeting the customer's requirements? So it's not possible to do this if you don't have things like real-time problem solving, your finger on the pulse of where things could go wrong. And that's all part of the definition of high reliability. So there's ways we can look at this. The first way we look at, one, on the left side of this slide, is you're increasing and optimizing outcomes. All right. We're getting good quality care. We're getting zero harm. All right. As reliability increases, you're optimizing outcomes and lowering the number of errors. Okay. So in blue on reliability, we want to have as few errors as possible and the most opportunities. Many of you have probably had some education on Lean Six Sigma. Well, the Six Sigma part of that is this, all right? How highly reliable are you and how effective are you? How effective are your processes? If you're really espousing high reliability, you're looking at Six Sigma levels, which is really a high level of performance, is about 3.4 errors per million opportunities, right? Very few industries get up to that level, okay? If you would do our Sigma calculations for Erlanger, we're probably at about the 2.5 to 3 Sigma level, okay? Things like infections, things like falls, et cetera, med errors, those are all what Lean Six Sigma folks will call defects or nonconformities. And we measure those. So we have to have that low rate of harm. The first way we attack this is through process design, evidence-based practice. All right. Are we meeting practice standards? We focus and simplify. Okay. We train our teams to such a high level that under times of stress, there's extreme focus. And we have tactical improvements, things like, are we meeting bundle reliability standards? Okay. Are we meeting our process standards to affect the outcome? So that's all process design. Okay. How do we administer drugs into a central line? How do we manage catheters? How do we manage sterile fields for surgery? These are all process that goes in process design. The second part of this, like we saw in Frankel's model, is reliability culture. We have to have core values around safety. When you look at the mission and vision values, not only for the College of Medicine and Erlanger, safety is very high on the list. It's a value of the organizations. Once you get that value set and your process is set, then you can start hiring for fit, bringing the right people into the organization that you know can sustain our reliability factors. And then through accountability and through evaluation, behavior expectations are set for every single person that works in the organization. And then I'll bring it back again, we have to have a just culture. If something were to occur, we have to be fair in how we look at harm, both on the system and the individual level. A large amount of harm that happens in very complex systems are system related, system process related, with very little individual failure going into the equation. We have to come with that mindset. That allows us to maintain our non-punitive environments. And lastly, you start getting into engineering factors, human factors, right? Intuitive designs, impossible to do the wrong thing. We see in any given patient room, you can see many indications of where human factor design has gone into biomedical equipment, bed design, floor materials, room design, et cetera, et cetera. So we have to make sure that we have these in place, and that really gets into the physical environment piece as well as ergonomics. So how do we measure quality and safety levels in healthcare? Well, we mentioned a few. In the industry, it's really called, in manufacturing, it's a reduction of nonconformities. But in healthcare, we want to reduce infections. We want to reduce falls, we want to reduce untimely documentation. We want to reduce readmissions. These are all things that are not in our formula for quality healthcare and zero harm. So the way we do that is we have to continually monitor and measure the things that we do, both on the structural, the process, and the outcome side. If we do that, then we can identify where the nonconformities are, where the errors are occurring, and then we can enact improvement science methods to make improvements. So we're talking about process improvement. There's really three factors. You got process capability. Do we have the capability within the system to improve? Are people trained? Do we have the skills needed to have process improvement in place, or we can improve? Process reliability. Have we built the process where we can improve upon it? It just needs to be enforced. And do we have process improvement itself? So do we have personnel to do this and the methods necessary to do it? And everything, of course, is built on measurement. We cannot have process or quality improvement without the proper measurement to make sure we're making a difference. So Deming really distilled this down, like we said at the beginning with the aircraft carrier example. And Deming's, and his words, said, if I had to reduce my message for management to just a few words, I'd say it all had to do with reducing variation. So when we're practicing, when we're providing care, it's about how are we reducing variation each time we touch the patient. We do this and we measure it oftentimes by using statistical process controls. So this is a trend chart over time where we see two things. The two main requirements of quality improvement are, one, we have to change the level of performance. That is the bold gray lines. So you see over time, as we establish standards, as we reduce variation, the level of performance goes up. If this is compliance to a bundle to provide care with someone with a central line, all right, we're seeing that reduction, or that increase in the level of performance. The second thing you need for quality improvement is that reduction in variation, like we've been talking about. So as you look over time from left to right, those red dotted lines are starting to squeeze. In a statistical process control chart, that's the measure of variation at any given point in time based on your performance. All right, so this is a great example that we're seeing the two requirements for quality improvement, the change in the level of the performance and a reduction of variation. And we do this with bundle reliability. These are the type of charts we look at for both outcomes and processes here to see how we're trending on performance and compliance. So Erlanger and the college, we're on it together on this. We have organizational oversight for how we build this whole quality management system, okay? Last year, we became what's known as ISO 9001 certified. ISO 9001 is a standard set of criteria where, if followed, you will build your quality management system for your organization. Gets into committee structures, gets into how you have a flow of information, how you resource things, how leadership strategically plans, on and on and on. So you build this system internally, and that's the structure on which you place quality and safety. So ISO 9001 is really the defined standard for how you build a QMS. And when D&V comes into town, they actually assess how well our quality management system is working. They were just in town last week and said our quality management system looks pretty good. So the quality management system is just a formalized process for how we do this. The first thing we need to do, and this is from Levitt a while back, 2011, but it still holds true. The first thing in ISO is you have to define your key processes. All right. What are the key processes we have in place to care for patients, all right, to meet customer requirements? You have a series of inputs to do that. Need the right equipment, need the right training, et cetera, et cetera. And we hope to get good outputs, all right, out of these key processes, which are customer satisfaction, zero harm, and quality care. Once we define those key processes, we got to manage them, right? So we have to document things, right? We have to measure things. We have to have management review on if the processes are working appropriately. If they're not, we have to come in and audit the things that are really not working appropriately and have corrective actions, right? So that's all in the management of the key processes. And once you manage them and see that you have fallouts, then you improve. Okay, that's where you try to decentralize QI methods as much as possible so you can have local improvements on things that need to be worked on. And there's a number of methods that can be used to make this happen. Lean Six Sigma is one, PDCA or PDSA cycles, the aforementioned statistical process control, trend chart evaluations, on and on and on. If you're basing that on the high risk in the organization and things that we have to be good at, then we're just crossing our T's and dotting our I's on quality. This is the quality management system engine. Every circle you see in that middle box is an ISO clause, an ISO 9001. So this starts in the central focus of leadership. Leadership has to strategically plan what are the major initiatives, what are the major focus areas of the organization. This is usually done on a yearly basis and monitored, and this is usually set with the final approval of the board. So we strategically plan and go around the engine where leadership then provides support, proper staffing, proper operational components to make this work. Leadership also within ISO 9001 has a very important component where they have to do regular evaluations and management reviews of all of these components. All of our processes, are they working appropriately? Again, if something is not working appropriately, we kick in the QI. So the engine really, if you look at it from left to right, is a simple input-output system. We have inputs that are important to us as a business. The voice of the patient, voice of the family, top 10 problem lists at the unit level, staff expectations, regulatory requirements, community responsibility, all that goes into the engine. The engine then, if it's working appropriately through ISO manifestation, gives us great system outputs. Quality outcomes, zero harm, and full regulatory compliance with good staff satisfaction. So I liken this to Formula One. Formula One has 21 folks on any given pit crew and pit stop that has to work in synchronization. They have to be highly skilled. They have to know their roles and responsibilities, much like in a hospital, right? Much like docs and nurses and residents and administration and ancillary staff, you name it, we all have to work in good precision. Without that, you're going to have bad pit stops, and on the hospital side, you're going to have harm and non-quality outcomes. So our goal through ISO, through quality improvement, through standardization, reduction of variability is that right there, all right? A less than 3-second pit stop and back on your way, and that's pretty much what I would call performance excellence. So this is for Erlanger Health System. Please don't get into the specifics of this, but this is the quality management system committee structure. The one thing you really have to focus on is really on the right side of this, because the right side of this is our quality management system committee structure. This is where we evaluate safety. This is where we evaluate outcomes from eSafe. This is where we look at data. It rolls up through a committee called the Quality Governance Council, and that's where risk is assessed for the organization, and that goes straight to the chiefs for evaluation. From the chiefs, we give regular updates to the Board of Trustees. All right, so we are very close to the board. The board gets regular updates on the performance of the things we see that are risk-based, coming from our local quality committees like Children's, East, North, DNV findings, even to critical access hospitals, and of course, eSafe and patient safety. So all this is funneled into risk prioritization through the governance council and onto the chiefs and the board. That circle in the middle is our communication wheel. So everything that we do at the chiefs level and at the quality governance council level, the mechanism that's in place is, one, you have to educate leaders about what's going on. So we have the Quality Oversight Committee, which is an open meeting where we show good progress on very important projects. We have the Executive Management Meeting, which is VPs and above, and we have the Leadership Forum, which is all directors and above for Erlanger. And then that, through cascading, is trickled down through Leadership Forum education to the front line. This is what DNV last week was excited about, the progress that we're making as an organization to make sure that this communication is happening. So let's get into event reporting a little bit here in the next few minutes. This all goes back to Frankel and his model about how we become a learning system. We cannot learn from events if they're not analyzed and we have the right people in the room to examine the factors that could have led to a safety event. Okay, so there's very standardized methods that are known, it's known as HPI methodology, healthcare performance improvement methodology. I'll show you an example of that in a moment, that has very specific meeting models and classification models for safety events. All that's so important on how we become a learning system. All of this goes right back to the mission, vision, values of the organization. You can't decouple the two. And notice on the very top, we have improved quality, safety, and service, right? So we're looking at the values of the organization. Remember, in the Hudson model, ingraining safety and improvement and learning systems and high reliability into your mission is of the utmost importance. So I take you back to Frankel. What we're talking about is this lower semicircle, the learning system. All right, we already talked about reliability. Well, let's talk about transparency and continuous learning. Two more puzzle pieces in the Frankel model for how this works. First of all, this runs through a centralized team, all right, which is the quality, safety, and service team, which I am extremely fortunate to lead. Part of that team is the patient safety review team, all right? We review our zero harm. We review even peer review and kick that off to medical affairs to review issues in that regard. But the big piece of that is the root cause analysis box. Every day we have specialists that review every eSafe that goes into the eSafe system, right? The event management system. From there, it's screened, it's scanned, and if more causal analysis is needed, we reach out to the folks that are responsible for that and we start scheduling the meetings. So a big part of this is centralized to the quality, safety, and service team, but becomes very decentralized very quickly, if that makes sense. Getting your subject matter experts and those who are involved in the event is quite important. Again, I'll go back to this slide. That piece, getting the folks involved at the front line, is a major culture and engagement piece for safety culture to work appropriately. So a culture of safety, what this all revolves around, this learning system and culture of safety, is really an environment in which providers can discuss errors, can discuss near misses and harm openly. The HPI method of root cause analysis hinges on open discussion about the event itself, okay? Maybe most of you in this room maybe have been involved in an RCA that has occurred. So you get an upfront view of really how this system works, and we get to good action items at the end to prevent reoccurrence. So the harm has to be discussed openly, knowing that there won't be punishment or unfair assumptions made on the cause of the harm, on the cause of the event, right? That is the crux of the non-punitive culture of safety. So that leads to, hopefully, more reporting of events, right? We always want to increase, no matter how small, you always want to increase the number of safety events or near misses or possible events that go into the event management system. It's the only way that it'll lead to improvement. So this starts in an awareness function and leads to learning. So if you have a well-oiled safety machine, a process machine, one, we have to report the event, no matter how small. That's the awareness, okay? Then we have the causal analysis, that's the learning. And then at the end, we have action items and positive change, which is the improving, okay? So we go from awareness to learning to improving throughout the event management cycle. So causal analysis is really about having a systematic approach to analyze those factors. HPI has a list of factors that lead to harm, all right? It's upon the safety team and those involved in any given root cause analysis event to come up with those factors. But the goal is really to look at those factors and how we can mitigate them in the future. Every action item in a root cause analysis needs to be linked back to a causal factor, right? So you're attacking those causal factors one by one through action items and improvement. There are other types of analysis called apparent cause analysis. This is a sort of a mini RCA. It's done more quickly and it's usually done on less severe events. Okay, precursor safety events or near misses, we might want to do apparent cause analysis, which are usually one meeting or is a quick discussion amongst those who were involved at the unit level, right? It's usually handled in that manner. So this is the pyramid, the safety event classification pyramid that HPI espouses. On the bottom, and this is the volume through which we should see safety events occur and be reported. At the bottom are near miss events. These are good catches. The beauty of this is we caught something before it reached the patient, right? A near miss safety event is determined when there's a deviation from what's called GAPS, generally accepted practice standards, right? Generally a practice standards, GAPS, but it didn't reach the patient, okay? The error is caught in time. So we want a lot of those, all right? This is preemptive. The near misses are preemptive, they're predictive. Above that, and lesser in volume, you would hope, are precursor safety events. This is, again, deviation from generally accepted practice standards, okay? But it reaches the patient, all right? There was an effect on the proper care of the patient due to this deviation. Precursor safety events are classified when it reaches the patient, but there's minimal or no detectable harm, okay? So those are the decisions that are made by the root cause analysis group going through the HPI methodology and the factor determination. At the top of the pyramid, and you hope you have very few of these within an organization, are serious safety events, okay? Again, a deviation from GAPS that reaches the patient and results in moderate to severe harm or death, okay? These are very rare, as I said, or you want them to be, but they take and they lead to the largest scrutiny through root cause analysis. Many organizations, and what we do here, and we're starting to do, serious safety events and outcomes of root cause analysis go straight to the board. They're aware of every serious safety event that happens in the hospital. That's the level of transparency learning systems need to accrue, okay? We talk about them in several venues, but we at Erlanger are working to make sure we have good communication on serious safety events across the board. Here's an algorithm we use, okay? We bring this up at every meeting when we're starting to look at classification of level of safety event. Was there a deviation from generally accepted performance standards? If the answer is no, it's not a safety event, okay? If the answer is yes, you go to the next level, okay? Then you ask the question, did the deviation reach the patient? If it didn't, it's a near miss, okay? And it's classified as such. If there was, if there's patient interaction, you go to the next level. Did the deviation cause moderate to severe harm? If it's a no, that's a precursor, minimum to no harm. And then if the answer is yes to severe harm or death, serious safety event. So we work through this with every RCA that we do. And here's the levels of harm. We are currently transitioning to this as an organization. It's a big transition, but the patient safety organizations nationally that we work with for transparency purposes are helping us in this transition to full HPI classification. So as you see, there's 5 levels of serious safety event, 4 levels of precursor, and 3 levels of near miss. Okay. Very important because it gets into 2 things. 1, the severity of the harm, and 2, the time course of the harm. Okay. So was it moderate, severe, minor, or not detectable? Right. Very important to look at level. And was it temporary or permanent? Okay. So that lets you set in to one of these levels. And those are determinations that are made by consensus. Okay. These are consensus decisions by those in the RCA and it's supported by the quality and safety team. Root cause analyses in its basic form really is based on the Swiss cheese model. Our processes, like we just talked about, that reduction of variation of our processes, getting good quality outcomes, 0 harm, we put barriers in place so harm does not reach the patient. Everything we do daily to care for patients, as you're working through that, identify the barriers that are in place: alarm systems, bed rails, wet floor signs, simple things like that. All right, that's all barriers to patient harm or harm reaching the patient. What James Reason proposed many decades ago was the Swiss cheese model is in effect. Each slice of Swiss cheese is a barrier. What happens according to Reason is that barrier can corrode, that barrier can become ineffective. It could be a one-off, it could be a system issue, but that barrier is not effective in preventing harm. And it could be one step to the patient. Since we're in a complex system, a complex environment, oftentimes there's several layers of Swiss cheese between us, the harm, and the patient. Okay. Look how this has to line up for harm to eventually reach the patient. It usually has to go through several barriers to get there. That's the philosophy behind the Swiss cheese model. It's going through the holes right down through the patient. Each one of those slices of cheese, if there's a hole through which the harm progressed, is a gap. Okay. Within the root cause analysis process, we're analyzing each slice of cheese. What happened in slice 1? What happened on this barrier? Why did it break down? Right? Why did education break down? Why did this technical piece break down? So we have to identify first each level or slice of cheese. And the job of the root cause analysis is that improvement phase at the end. Okay? That improvement phase turns the Swiss into cheddar. All right. We're getting the solid nature of the slices of cheese back. That's what we want in our systems. That's what we want in our processes. So when we're out there caring for patients, okay, if you detect something, even if it's a gut feeling, if something doesn't feel right, try to put it in eSafe. Give me a call. Call Jackie Bishop. Call the safety team. Let us know. We'll help you with it. Right? Call Dr. Bennett. Okay, we can help you get this through the quality and safety system. Okay, we can't let it go. Right? Each gut feeling, each small thing that occurred at the bedside could be a near miss. Okay, we got to learn from that. So you do that, and who's put an eSafe in before? Yeah, some of them take time to do it. We appreciate you putting them in. But there's just a series of drop downs and a small area where you can define the event that happened. When that goes into eSafe, the electronic system, that shoots out based on where the event occurred to leadership of that area. Okay, it automatically brings them in. They get an email notification that something happened in an area that they're responsible for. So it automatically gets leadership involved. I get every eSafe. If it's clicked in that there's potential for harm, I get that too. Okay, so there's a lot of transparency on this, on what's happening on a daily basis. So the goal is get this to the specialist team, the patient safety specialist team, get it to the quality and safety team, no matter how small. If you want more training on this, we have an expert trainer on eSafe who is Dia Perry. Right? You will learn more than you'll ever want to know about eSafe. Contact Dia. She's excellent. If you have questions about HPI, how root cause analyses occurred. Reach out to Jackie or myself. Here's the reach outs, or Dean, who's a coordinator for patient safety. And we're more than happy to sit down with you and give you more information about how root cause analyses are performed and what you can do to help. One more thing is HPI methodology usually goes across 3 meetings. Okay. The first meeting is the awareness meeting. Is everybody okay? Is the patient taken care of? And is staff okay? Okay. Then at that point, if everything is level set, we'll schedule the second meeting. Leading up to the second meeting, we dive deep into the process, right? Going back to that Swiss cheese model. What's every step in the process? We do medical record review, we do interviews with the folks involved, and create a timeline with potential gaps. Okay. A lot of work goes into that. Then we get everybody together for meeting 2. We go over the timeline and potential areas that we need to improve upon. Going into meeting 3, it's all about finalization of action items. Okay. So it's a very standard way in which we approach the 3 meetings. Also, always important to keep in mind second victims. All right. If you're involved in a situation where there might be a safety event, talk to your division chief, talk to an attending, talk to a friend. EAP is available through human resources. Many, many things you can do, but please take care of yourself because there can be effects on the caregiver, of course, if a safety event does occur. All right, that's what we have today. I'm happy to take any questions. All right, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it. Again, if you have any questions, reach out to me personally, and we can make sure everything we can do is in order to make sure we have the best safety possible to Erlanger. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Yes, thank you. Yeah, let me share the screen. Just a second. How would I go here? And if I do that, can I? QR code. This is the attendance code for the HPP session today. You can use your phone's camera or your tablet's camera. And if you're logged in on your device, this will automatically capture your attendance for today. Okay? And it'll probably be active until 1 p.m. Thank y'all so much for joining us. I appreciate it. I've gotten all the people on the chat, the participants online and here in Probasco. We appreciate y'all so much. These are held typically the 3rd Tuesday of every month. I'll make sure that all of you have the schedule and that you get a calendar invite for all of the sessions going forward. Thank you. Bye-bye. And I can end, right?